types of businesses that definitely need to be
Yeah.
that way. I remember I don't know if I've ever told you the story, but I went to New York once, and I just said, "Hey, I'm gonna be in New York. If any of my fans wants to meet up or whatever, you know."
Yeah, I think I remember seeing
And the one guy showed up, and he told me, I didn't know who the guy was, but he's like, he goes, what do you want to do? And I'm like, oh well, I'm trying to do videos and my channel and the thing, and this, and I'm converting my car and the thing. I'm kind of ran him down through all these things and he's looking at me and he goes, you should start a car company, like Elon, And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, that's not within my realm. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's I don't have the know-how. I don't have the means. I don't have like, that's not what I do. And I'm thinking, like, that's a dumb thing to say, you know what I mean? But then later on, I realized that the dude was a millionaire, right? And so in his reality, it is a possibility, and he doesn't have those doors that I had at that time,
Exactly.
that I still have, you know what I mean? Like, I'd like to operate within my reach, and I form, my idea of where my reach is at by many factors, right? He operates at a different level because he's got an account with like millions of dollars, right? So for him to tell me that, it's a reasonable thing.
Yeah.
But obviously for me, from my perspective, I'm like, are you crazy?
Well, that's the whole purpose of conversation.
Yeah.
Is the whole purpose of, and this might be on a different topic, but the whole purpose of that conversation is to, there's someone who illustrated it this way. I think it might have been Jordan Peterson. They're saying, look, if we're all on a scale from 1 to 10, right? Or no, from 0 to 10, right? And that's in the possibilities that you have, right? Well, some of us, right, and that includes you and that includes me, some of us have been stuck at 0 and all our time and effort is spent trying to get from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
And so we have to work extremely hard to get from 0 to 1, because the rest of the opportunity, we didn't have the connections, we didn't have the parents to show us how to do these things, we didn't have the education, we didn't have the money, we weren't in the right area, all these different things, right? Life threw us a bad hand, right? So for some people, it's easy to say, oh, just invest $100,000 into the thing and get it off the ground. But that's because they had all these things in place, right? So it's easy for them to move from 4 to 7, for example, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy. Well, but for some of us, we've had to struggle, literally like almost a life and death struggle, just to get from 0 to 1. And that's actually the hardest place to get out of. Yeah. Because if you have nothing to invest, well, then you can't go anywhere.
You can't start anything.
Yeah, you can't start anything because you're literally just trying to survive, right? And so that's one of the things that sometimes people like that lack the perspective, to be perfectly frank. That's what it is. They lack the perspective to understand that not everyone is like them. Is that some of us don't have $1 million in the bank to be able to kind of say, oh, just open up a company and do that. Well, I can't. Oh, just get a loan. Well, I don't have any credit, because I can't even.
One of your friends to lend you the money.
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't have friends that have money like that. Oh, well, tell your parents. I grew up without my parents. I was orphaned. So some people don't realize that, and so that's why having conversations with people, you actually get to find out things. Yeah. Like, it's amazing what you can do when you have conversations with people. Yeah. And then you get to realize that those nuances, and then we don't say things that that I don't want to say that they're insensitive, because that sounds strange, but we don't say things that don't make sense. Because if you was talking to another millionaire, that would make perfect sense. Oh, start another company, but talking to someone like yourself or myself that have worked extremely hard just to kind of get out of 0.
Yeah, no, but the opposite is also true. Like, if you hang out with a bunch of millionaires and you're not a millionaire, it rubs off on you. Like, thinking without the walls, right? And you're like, this is a crazy idea in my world, from my perspective, but from his perspective, it's not crazy. I'm just going to do it. And it might be enough to make you, and you're probably going to fail, but, it can't be 100% failure.
Yeah.
No one is like 100% failure rate, right?
Like for example,
Everybody-
that's the whole point of with like innovation, right? Like iterating,
Yeah.
right? Like the whole point of innovation, or not the whole point of innovation, but a part of the process of innovation is iteration, right? Is you trying to figure out what's working by also seeing what's not working,
Yeah.
right? And that requires risk and a certain amount of investment, whether it's time or money,
Yeah.
right? And so when someone is, and this is to your point, when someone is fighting to survive, they're holding on to every little thing and they can't risk anything.
Yeah.
But then you can't innovate.
you can't.
You have to be able to have a little bit of risk and invest something somewhere to be
Yeah.
able to try. And it may be easier said than done, but it's a necessary requirement. But that's a lot of times it can be, I mean, unless someone is completely destitute, then it's just not possible for them to innovate at all because they literally have nothing. They literally can't eat, and so they don't have anything to. So that's a different situation.
Yeah.
Some of us have been in that situation, by the way. I have myself. But at least once you're able to say, look, they say you have to spend money to make money. Like from my understanding, that doesn't make any sense because I'm holding on to every scrap. But then at the same time, in order to kind of break that barrier and move to the next level, that actually is what makes sense, is you have to invest in order to get a return.
Yeah.
And
money-
things like that.
Money can mean a lot of things, like time, for example. So
Yeah.
maybe you don't have $1, but
Yeah.
maybe you do have an hour. And
Exactly.
someone doesn't want to spend an hour peeling some potatoes or something, and they'll give you $1 for your time peeling the potatoes. You know, that's how it starts, right?
It's exchanging value.
Yeah.
Is what it is. So, and that's why I look at things more in terms of value than in terms of like dollars or other things. It's like, how much do we value this thing? And as soon as you find value, then you can either exchange it for money or you could exchange it for other things, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I might look at this empty water bottle and it's valueless now because it's empty. But someone might have this really cool thing that they can do with this thing. Maybe they do a trick with the water bottle, and people pay to see him do that trick. So the value.
Well, you might want to boil water so that you can drink it, and if you don't have that bottle, then you can't do it. But if you have it, you can boil water with it, right? And then you're like, oh, I can drink it. So it becomes a very important thing. It's got a lot of value.
Yeah.
It's just depending on what angle you look at.
Exactly, it's all contextual. And so, and the only way you can get context is like by having information, right? And the way you can get information is you can either like go out and live it and learn it that way, which can be useful, but is not always the most beneficial things. Because sometimes along the way you die, and then you can no longer learn it. So sometimes that's a good way to learn things, but sometimes you can learn from experience, or you can learn from others who have done similar things, and then you can glean from them insights and things, and then you don't have to like die like the other guy did.
Yeah. So I hope everyone knows that you can start businesses without money.
Yeah, we've done it.
Like we've done it. I've started with $300, right? $300 in my pocket. I built a little thing for a camera. People needed it. See, here's the thing though. I wouldn't have known that was a possibility if I hadn't been trying things. Yeah. And I wasn't trying to start a company. I was trying to better my camera. I was trying to hack my camera into making it look better than it did from out of the box. Yeah. Right? And because I'm not unique, I'm not, I'm just like everyone else. There's a ton of other people that were trying to do the exact same thing. And if I figure something, and by the way, I didn't figure it out. I just hijacked someone else's accomplishment, and I'm like, oh, this dude figured out how to do it. You just make a box and you do a little piece of, glass, and then you grind it up with some super fine powder. It's aluminum oxide, and I'm like, I'm looking in the forums and I'm like, you just learn to do this thing, then you do it, and then people online were like, oh, can you make me one? I don't want to spend the time learning to do it. Yeah. So this is essentially what I did. I traded my time, right, for a few bucks for someone. Someone didn't want to take the trouble to go and learn to do the thing that they want to do. I had already done it. Yeah. And that was a repeatable thing, in the span of a few weeks and a few months, I repeated that same process, hundreds and hundreds of times, right? And in the span of, I don't know, a few years, it was like thousands, 10,000 times or something, and so very quickly it kind of grew. And so I didn't have to figure out how to set up a business. It just happened.
Yeah.
They just like, oh, I'm doing something that someone else wants. Bam, So I buy the parts for $30 and then I'd sell them for $300. So my margins were huge, at those early stages. But of course, eventually I had to get a place and people and employees, and it started cutting into my margins until a time came where my margins are not big enough and I can't. It wasn't sustainable, right?